In theory, according to YouTube, and this is only in theory, we are currently live.
Yeah, in theory.
In theory. So, I would like to welcome my guest, Brian Young, Battletech author and also an author of several other sci-fi genres and other things, to the channel today to talk about Let's Slip the Dogs of War and just general Battletech stuff. So, welcome aboard, Brian.
It's always a pleasure to be here to speak with you on the record.
Is that true? Is that actually?
That's what they asked me to say beforehand. No, it's always a pleasure to get to chat with you on or off the record. It gets more colorful off, but on the stream it's fine. Off stream there's more talk of cannibalism and whatever else.
And also what re-entry would look like for Tucker Harwell. What,
Man. I don't understand why you have it out for Tucker Harwell so much.
What? It's like,
I mean, you stated it, but that doesn't mean it. It feels like it comes from a place where, like, Tucker hurt you when you were a kid.
Why would the diehard Comstar fan not like Tucker Harwell? What could possibly be the reason for that disdain?
He's a fictional character.
Yeah, that means it's even more permissible to hate him.
I guess that's fair.
I don't like to hate real people, but Tucker, he's making up for it.
Okay.
So
this is why you're not reading my next book.
It's like, oh, it's a Sea Fox novel, and it has Tucker Harwell in it. This is on the not read list.
Which is it's funny because, like, I think aside from the fact that it's a Sea Fox novel with Tucker Harwell in it, there's so much in it you would love. And it's so, like, we've talked about this a lot. And I think I think you'd have fun with it aside from those two things, but I think those two things are too big of a mountain for you to climb.
It's like every chapter I'd read, I'd just have to message you, just be like, so this is the chapter where Tucker is on the way to dying, right? This is the only reason why I'm reading this book, right?
Yeah, sure. If that's what you need to hear to read it.
So
I will give you a copy when it comes out in print.
Don't give me a copy.
I will handwrite a new ending on just your copy. That's just for you. Because that's one of my favorite, like, memes, like the you've seen that meme where somebody wrote, like, they rewrote the ending to Frankenstein where he's sailing away in the distance and he's like, I understand that I'm Frankenstein's monster, but it's okay if you call me Frankenstein. I'm cool with that too.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I recently read Let's Slip the Dogs of War. I was too busy actually to read it when it came out. I was dealing with like 2 other videos, but I took this week off, and so I actually had time to read a book. I could feel my literacy skyrocket. So just letting everybody know, the bot has been disabled for this stream just because it is an interview stream, but I will read super chats before we finish. But effectively speaking, I had a lot of fun with this book. And funnily enough, I like the Ghost Dogs. For those of you who don't know, the Ghost Dogs are like a breakaway Kellhounds unit that came out of the sundering of the Kellhounds, trying to avoid the Jade Falcons. And they're a fun unit, they're a quirky unit, but I actually liked the Marians the most in this book. I thought the Marians had the best outing. I thought that they were fantastic.
Yeah, it's I really I don't feel like the Marians have ever gotten enough screen time.
Ever.
And I was really interested in that when I was going through I want to say it was Empire Alone, where
yes, it's Empire Alone.
They had gone into the Duchy of Tamarind Abbey, and I was sort of plotting out where the Ghost Dogs could go between now, and I say now is Giving Up the Ghost, the story that came with the Kickstarter,
Yep.
The Mercenaries Kickstarter, where they get the call from Calandra to scatter, and where they could go between then and the time they'd get the call back. And I really liked the idea of having them defend one of the worlds that was actually able to repel the Marian hegemony.
Yep.
And so this was a story I wanted to tell from the very first moment that I was going to tell that story. And funnily enough, the Ghost Dogs have been something that I've been sort of plotting and preparing since before I even wrote Honor's Gauntlet. We talked on the stream a little bit about how, I think last time I was here, how Mike Stackpole and I were working on Kellhound's stuff before Honor's Gauntlet came about, because we were doing Kellhound stuff that was going to tie into Hour of the Wolf, but sort of the plan changed. And so the Ghost Dogs were sort of my part of that. And we were going to do some stuff in there with that. But so I'd sort of written some of that or plotted out what I wanted to do. And I just got really fascinated by the Marian hegemony. And I mean, the Marian hegemony is, I know there's a lot of fans of them that sort of like really like them. And wanted them treated like...
I love it. You're like, they actually like them. It's not ironic. I mean, they actually like these.
The Marians on the page are very much bad guys, right? Like
what?
I know, right? Like they're literally fascists who own slaves, right? Like there's nothing like there's nothing like, there's not a lot redeeming about them. But the thing is that like even in the worst factions in Battletech, there's going to be people that have feelings, and I was really fascinated by what motivates people that are really bought in on the propaganda but still have personal feelings.
You also did this in Honor's Gauntlet, though, with what's her name, the Star Captain / Colonel, the one who,
yeah,
like, you know, you like, just to be fair, like, and which I think is actually a really cool thing, that you actually give a lot of the bad guys like a genuine outing that is not completely unreasonable. Like, they're not just unreasonable for the sake of being unreasonable. They're just people in a system who buy into it.
Yeah, and I'm really fascinated, but I really want to understand why people buy into those systems that aren't good, you know. And so Quintus is not, he's not necessarily an intrinsically horrible person. He just buys into a horrible system.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to have, I don't think it's necessarily a spoiler if you haven't read the book, but, you know, because it happens very early on, but both Quintus and one of the Ghost Dogs sort of go through an intertwining story of dealing with their grief.
Him and Rufo, if I remember correctly, without spoiling anything, but just it's Quintus and Rufo are kind of the main characters of the book.
Yeah, and so I wanted to see how people with different cultures and backgrounds and places in the inner sphere and different places on the chain of command, as it were, dealt with grief at different levels, and you know, really affected people. I think Battletech is at its most interesting when it's at its most human.
I agree,
and I think that's really a lot of where this came from for me.
Yeah, Quintus is such a reasonable, like, commander. Like, I mean, like, you know, like, in terms of his military command, even in terms of, like, just his ability to work with his troops. He's understanding, he's reasonable, but you look under the surface and you're like, oh, good God. He's a very personable guy.
On a different day, things could have gone very differently for him and the Ghost Dogs. And that was part of it too, right? Like, really, like, him coping with his grief really did affect his
command.
Him coping with his grief. Hey, Kingston, do you want to go back out and play? She's in her office. Oh, I don't know where she is. Sorry. him coping with his grief really added layers to what his command was and what he was willing to do, and ultimately that his grief is why the ultimate ending of the story ended the way it did.
Yep.
That informed his command decisions, because that changes people.
Are you now, just as a quick aside, are you saying that the ambitions of Ignatius O'Reilly, the Caesar of the Marian hegemony, are not just bringing order to the disheveled Free Worlds League?
I mean, maybe on Hammer they are, but
I remember we talked about it, I'm like, just FYI, Hammer is not well governed.
no, it's not. Well, that was part of it too. Like, I was really excited to sort of show a slice of the Free Worlds League, because I don't know, like, the Free Worlds League to me seems like a very hilarious grab bag.
Oh my god! Each duchy is just its own disaster.
Yeah.
And you know what? The reason why the Free Worlds League worked for so long is because the Marik Commonwealth just tolerated all of these completely dysfunctional duchies that they glued to themselves. Like, it's bizarre as it sounds, if they hadn't been shackled with the rest of the Free Worlds League, this one duchy probably would have been better off.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, like, part of it, there was a whole lot of stuff that I was really interested in exploring in this one piece, and one of them was that, just the dysfunction of this local government, and how they didn't actually want to work with the ghost dogs to save themselves, and some World War II stories that I'd read about that I wanted to sort of incorporate into Battletech. And yeah, just I wanted to have fun with it. I think the ghost dogs are a counterpoint for me away from the Fox Patrol, right? Like, they're
very, very different.
Very different, yeah. And I'm trying to, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I'm writing a lot of different sorts of units, and I don't want any of them to feel the same. I don't want anybody to read my stuff and go like, oh, it doesn't matter which.
Yeah, it's a Brian Young novel, so they're all the same. It's the same unit no matter what, you know.
Yeah.
You get very samey, right? Yeah. Like, and for the record, I've not noticed you write very samey, just to be fair.
Yeah. And I've worked very hard to try to make sure that it doesn't feel like that, because, you know, they're not the same, and I'm trying to approach them from where they are in the universe and who they are and what their backgrounds are, rather than me just trying to insert myself into everything, right? The Ghost Dogs are different than the Fox Patrol, who are different than, say, the Tomcats, who we saw in Without Question. You know, and those are all different than all the Clanners that I write. And the Jade Falcons were different than the Ghost Bears, and
oh yeah, like it's very amusing that you can see G. One of my favorite scenes. It's been out for months, so I will say it is like someone brought up like even the prospect of having a similar system to the Dominion, and he's like, no. It's like shaking his head. He's like, we're not going that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to stick with the original clan system, but I can definitely tell you we will not be emulating the Ross-like Dominion.
I'm good with things to a point. Like, I'm a fair man, but not a ghost bear.
We have another name for them. It's called Clan Ghost Rug. They get trampled all over. So yeah, I mean, like, I was very happy to see the Marians get an outing. That was probably the biggest draw for me to read the book. You know, it's just like, you know, I like the Ghost Dogs just fine, but I'm like, the real draw is that you actually, I can't think of another novel or novella that has ever really tackled the Marians at all.
I did another short story with the Marians,
but that's a short story.
Yeah. It was interesting. Like, it's funny. Like, I think Legends 2 actually came out before this, but I wrote that way after this story. This story I wrote at least 2 years ago. Um,
One of my favorite parts about the Empire Alone thing is that it just because not everybody will know the whole history of it, it actually ties into the end of Marion's success, because the Marians have actually been hyper successful for like 100 years. It has been 100 years of growth at the expense of all of their neighbors. They've taken chunks out of the Free Worlds League. Their policy was like, we're going to become a great house. We are gonna act like we're a great house. We've got this. And then just like all it took was the attention finally being turned towards them by one duchy to totally shatter all of their dreams.
yeah, no, it's like, wait a second, we've not been paying enough attention to these guys. Get them, guys.
They lost 100 years worth of growth in like a year. It's like, yes, we finally built a great empire. Sir, it's been cut in half. What? But how?
Poor decisions.
Yeah, turns out Fontaine just sent us a letter and he says, I see you. I don't understand what that means. So
No, that was a lot of fun. I'd like to see more Marion stuff. I would really like to see more. I had a lot of fun with that story, both with the Ghost Dogs dealing with the Marians and that Isolde Centrella short story fighting against the Marians and sort of that threat she makes towards O'Reilly. And I would love to see more of that followed up, whether I do it or someone else does.
There's another Marian short story too that's about a Marik unit with a Neanderthal fighting against the Marians in an issue of Shrapnel. I forget which issue it's in though.
Yeah, no, they're getting a little bit more screen time, and I'd love to see more of it.
I mean, obviously, it's because they have a really cool faction symbol. As you can probably guess, I only buy swag for factions that I actually find interesting. So, I was very happy to see that the Marians got that. They're probably my favorite periphery state. Just to follow that really cringy meme of everybody just thinks about the Roman Empire. That's the only reason. That's the only reason why, obviously.
I mean, they are pretty much just Roman cosplayers.
Oh,
slavery included.
1 for 1. 1 for 1. So, if I'm not mistaken, you are also working on other Battletech projects that you mostly can't talk about.
I'm working on a lot of Battletech right now, and I've got a lot that's turned in. I don't know when a lot of it is coming out. I know when some of it's coming out, and I know what's going on with it. Coming up soonest, I believe, and don't quote me on it, I wrote an extra sort of novella-length piece to be collected with Lone Wolf and Fox, which is the serial novel from Shrapnel with the Fox Patrol.
Okay, yep.
And that novella sort of covers their time on Sudetan.
Okay.
And that would all be packaged together, and hopefully, fingers crossed. I was told it.
So that would give us yet another perspective. On
so we'd have
3 perspective pieces. It's a great battle, but I just think it's really funny. I'm like,
before
it took me a second there just to start putting pieces together. I'm like, Sudetan. I'm like, oh no. Clan Hell's Horses defeated in Technicolor.
Yeah. So that hopefully is coming soon, and then after that would be Voidbreaker. Voidbreaker is, as far as I'm aware, solidly January 2025. I've seen the cover, and it looks amazing. And Voidbreaker is really about the Seafox effort to get to the bottom of the HPG blackout and see what they can do about fixing that, and also...
If only they just got to the bottom of a ravine and stayed there. Just all the Seafoxes got to the bottom of the ravine, couldn't find a way out, and that would be perfect.
Yeah, I've heard that. I hear you. I hear you.
Randall's off, we're flying in a plane or whatever, just being like, I'm gonna strangle him the next time I see him.
I really enjoyed writing Tucker in this. And I think people are going to enjoy seeing what happens after the events of Hour of the Wolf as far as the blackout goes, and hopefully the answers are satisfying to folks about what happened through all of the blackout. Other stuff that's coming. So I've written a Fox Patrol novel. I don't know when that's coming out, but it takes place in the hinterlands. And it ties in pretty strongly with the Hotspots Hinterlands book, which is terrific. That book was my Bible when I was working on that Fox Patrol novel.
That comes out pretty soon, doesn't it?
It does. I've got the opening fiction in that book too, so that was a lot of fun. And that was actually, I got to reveal that actually in Games Expo UK. They did the diorama that was based on my opening fiction.
Oh, interesting.
Earlier this year from Hotspots Hinterlands, which was really cool.
Who are you rooting for in the hinterlands? Oh no! See, now also I've given you a dangerous question, because if you
can't answer that.
No, you will you will answer the question. No. No, the reason why is because I know you've got the Kellhounds in the area, with their own little micro state. You've got the Jade Falcons. You've got the Tamar Pact. All very, very interesting little places. I mean, we all know that Vedette Brewer is going to win, though. I think we're all aware that Brewer is him and the Vesper Marches have got this.
I'm really interested in Brewer and what's going to happen with him.
He's a fantastic human being.
He's a fantastic character. And I'm really excited to see what happens with him. We had some very spirited debates, and I think my favorite memory of Jason Schmetzer ever was his spirited defense of Vedette Brewer at our creative summit.
You know what? I came away with such a deep appreciation of Vedette Brewer after Elements of Treason Opportunity, and just what a complete cockroach he is as a human being. I just love the fact that he's just like this. He is bad for everyone. He's just awful, but you can't get rid of him.
Yeah, no, I love him in what was it too? It was Bonfire of Worlds.
He's the only good part. Like, I'm free to say, I can't stand Bonfire of Worlds, but the one part of Bonfire of Worlds I love is Vedette Brewer. The scene with the bankruptcy is a classic.
I really had to go through with a fine-tooth comb Bonfire of Worlds for all of Tucker's stuff. So, but no, like, Vedette has some really interesting stuff going on there. Calandra and the Kellhounds has interesting stuff going on there. The Falcons has interesting stuff going on there. The Aliena Mercantile League has really interesting stuff going on there. The Hell's Horses encroaching on it. I kind of view the Hell's Horses as part of the hinterlands, and they've got interesting stuff going on there just because they keep getting their nose spanked with everyone's newspaper.
Well, you know, and these were the people who believed that they were going to arrive at Terra, which is like they can't even roll over the hinterlands. Like, we begin our glorious march to Terra.
Yeah,
they get 5 feet out the door, falls over.
Yeah, and then the stuff with Sarah Regis is really fascinating, and I know that there's plans for some other regions and other stuff going on. And then we've got the Lone Wolves roaming around in there. We've got the Fox Patrol roaming around out there. We've got tons of mercenary units roaming around there. The Tomcats are still out there. We've got so sort of the next piece that I did, and again, I don't know when it's coming out, but I've turned in a pretty sizable novel about the ghost dogs coming to the hinterlands. Where Calandra has called them back and brought them back into the fold, and she's got some work for them in the hinterlands. And that's really helping set up a lot of what Calandra's story is going to be in the hinterlands, and I'm really excited about that. And I don't want to talk too much about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I will say there's a lot of storytelling potential everywhere in the hinterlands. The hinterlands is so loved because it's the part of the Ill Clan era that has caught the most attention. But it's caught the most attention because there's just so many interesting possible outcomes inside of it. Like there's nothing in there that's just like, even the most dull ending, which would just be like either the Hell Sources or the Lyrans just absorbing the whole area, even that, it's still in and of itself a potentially interesting story to progress. There's no part of it where you're just like, oh, we're just going through the motions. Like, there are stakes. Something will happen.
And I don't think it's any secret. We've talked about it on streams before. I think we talked about it at Adepticon, that the graphic novel is happening in the Hinterlands. Well, the graphic novels, plural, are happening in the Hinterlands. So there's a lot of action going on there. So there's a lot there. So I can't really. I'm just so in love with all of it. I really think it's all so exciting, and I think that they all have a really interesting part to play. So it's like looking at a really great ensemble cast and going like, who would I get rid of? Like, I wouldn't want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's nothing in the Hinterlands that I can think of that is just like, oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't fit here. You know, like I can be a scathing critic, as you know, for like, people, my favorite one is there is some people who believe that I'm not like a super scathing critic, and I'm like, oh my god. It's like, I'm surprised I wasn't punched in the face several times. You just see Mike Stackpole kick me in the back of the leg as Ray just grabs me and tries to like shove me to the ground. I'm like, but no, it's but just in general, the Hinterlands is fantastic. There's still so much to explore in it. Like, it does have a limited amount of potential in the sense of eventually it has to come to a close, but there's still years worth of stuff to be done there, which is amazing.
I think that's what's there's something I've really taken to heart. Back, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, I think it was Jason Aaron who started writing Superman. I could be wrong, and I could have the writer done. But he had Superman sort of forego his Clark Kent ego, and he sort of told everybody Clark Kent is Superman, and everybody knows. And people were like really upset with him. And they're like, why would you do this? It's a core part of the character. And Jason Aaron kind of said, like, well, for one, it's comics, so like at some point somebody's going to come back and undo that.
They're gonna reset the character at some point. Yeah.
But he's like, think about how many stories we've had with Superman where he's Clark Kent as his alter ego, but think about how many stories we haven't had where everybody knows, right? Think about all the story potential. They
did the same thing with Spider-Man. Now, how they got out of that with Spider-Man was one of the worst stories of all time, but the initial story was fine. The entry point was fine. It was the exit where you were like, what have you done, what have you done, Marvel?
Yeah, or Superior Spider-Man, where it's like, what if Doc Ock is Spider-Man, right? Like, how does that play? So it's like, the Hinterlands is creating really interesting story potential in a way that we just haven't had this level of interesting balkanization in Battletech in this way, where the stakes are so high in a place where like no one can really do anything about it, and no one has the power to like overpower the others. It really is this really fascinating stalemate, and they're all scrapping for life.
Just as a quick aside, I do see that Craig Reed is in the chat, and he did say Hell's Horses rule. However, I do have a really scathing joke in response to that, which is, do you want to know what the greatest oxymoron of all time is? Hell's Horses victory. I'm sorry, Craig. I had to do it. Sorry, Craig.
And I want to say, while Craig is watching and listening, like, one of the things that I think people complain the most about, without question, is that G had too easy of a time beating the Hell's Horses. And I think one of the things I've heard, one of the biggest complaints in your book, is that the Hell's Horses got spanked by GE too easily. And I think the both of us combined did literally as best we could, making that battle with a foregone conclusion that neither of us had anything to do with, as putting the stakes together and making that as exciting as we both could, and I really think that when you read yours and mine together, it creates something really, really interesting. When you read them back to back.
Elements of Treason Honor, well, it is a book that I didn't really enjoy famously. The best part of that book is the Battle of Sudeten. Like, there's that was the part where I felt really engaged. That was the part that I going through it, I thought it was really well put together. So
No, I think I had so much fun actually going through that, going through what Craig had done, and just creating something so that if people read one and then read the other, that they would get something extra out of both and not just feel like
if
they just read the same battle.
If you read the source book and you read the two battles, they all fit within one another without contradicting anything, which is, considering 3 different people wrote each one of these accounts, that's pretty good. That's pretty all right. And they're all decent to read, so there's nothing in there where I'm like, yeah, boo, hiss. They all read quite well as far as battles are concerned.
And I hope people enjoy the Fox Patrol take on it, because it's definitely, it does not have the wide overview. It's just,
oh my god, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
There are hell sources everywhere. Oh my god.
I mean, you gotta think, the Fox Patrol, the biggest battle they've ever been in is like, we're taking down 2 mannequins, like 2 mechs that are like disabled in a rice paddy, and realize that's a ruse, and we're gonna go take down these other 2 mechs, and all of a sudden they're at the Battle of Sudeten.
You so now fight the combined strength of the Tumen of Clan Hell sources. They're like, Tumen, is that big?
Yeah. So you can imagine how overwhelming it is for them. And so it's really from that sort of scale.
That's amazing. I love it. It's like, they're everywhere. But I also have heard that you are crazy because you have decided to write a Rosselhig story in the Ill Clan / Dark Age. I do have to ask, because, I am famously renowned for some hot takes on this, but are you mad? Have you lost your mind?
I was voluntold.
So you're not as crazy as it appears.
So I really believe in the story that Ray and the development team and John are really heading toward. And I had a lot of conversations with Ray about what they were trying to accomplish with Dominions Divided, especially before it came out, because I had to really preview a lot of it with Question of Survival. Right? I had to help show off at least one planet's worth of how the vote turned out and what happened there. And I was at dinner with Ray, Arastia, and John Helfers, and Ray mentioned that, like, we really needed some fiction to help people wrap their heads around how the Civil War could happen, because it seemed like people didn't really grasp onto it seemed like some battle. I don't want anybody to feel like it's being written as a response because people just didn't get Dominions Divided. That's not why it's being written. It's being written because I think there's a really human story in there, and I think Ray thinks there's a really human story in there. And I think it's a story that really needs to be told in fiction. And I think that there's a really interesting story to be told there. And so we're trying something new format-wise as far as telling that story. So it's 4 novellas that are interlinked with similar characters. So it's sort of like the serial novel format that you get in Shrapnel, but they're much bigger. So these are 20 to 30,000 word novellas. And they will take us from prior to the vote, all the way beyond the events of 3152.
Beyond the events of 3152. Interesting.
I think so. That's next week's work. So we'll see how far I get.
But yeah, this is in no way an asking for spoilers. I just wanted to know if you had lost your mind.
No, it really is like, I'm excited about the story. I love challenges. I love one of the things I love most about working in a sandbox like Battletech is a challenge, and I love putting together puzzle pieces. I love the developer saying, "Here's the story. Here's the challenge of the story. How do we make this fit? How do we make this feel real? How do we make characters occupy this space and feel natural there?" And I love making those parts work, and I feel like I'm not terrible at that. I feel like part of the reason Ray sort of came to me with this is because A Question of Survival, I think I handled the Ghost Bears pretty well. I think that like
I'm still subtly mad at you for Emilio Hall's death, even though I recognize it's what's best for the story. I'm
still mad at me for it too. Like, I was bawling when I wrote that scene. I was so mad at me for it because like I honestly, like, his death was not in the outline, and I got about 3 chapters away from writing it, and I was like, man, Emilio, I'm sorry, you gotta die, man. And I kept inching closer to that scene, and I was just mad at myself because it was the right choice.
I knew he was gonna die with like as soon as that scene started. Like, you know, like I could feel I could feel it in the room. I'm like, she's gonna shoot him. She's gonna shoot him. And then as soon as I got to the scene, I was like, oh, you son of a bitch, you actually did it.
Yeah. So yeah, like, I think that my handling of the Ghost Bears there really made Ray feel comfortable that I could handle the Civil War, and John feel comfortable that I could handle the Civil War, and so I don't want to get into too many details because obviously I'm still writing it right now, and so much could change.
Yeah, there's no need to give us any details whatsoever, but I just wanted to know why anyone would invite such suffering onto themselves, and now we have a satisfying answer.
I'm just having fun with it, to be honest. It's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the look at the Dominion. I'm enjoying the look at the politics, and I'm really trying to go out of my way. I get a little frustrated with I get a little frustrated sometimes when I get leveled like, oh, you're putting real world politics into this stuff, but it's like I'm really trying to root this in Battletech politics.
Yeah.
And if anyone has Battletech politics, it's the Racelheg Dominion.
You're not wrong.
So, yeah. But so like it's there's so much. I mean, like, you can't have a civil war without delving into their politics, and it's been so fun working that out and going through and reading the backstory, reading what's been going on and how messy the union between the Ghost Bears and the Dominion was. Right? Like, there's nothing
my favorite
easy about it.
My favorite is still the Second Combine Dominion War and the outcome of that war. Like, you know, just like, you know, I don't, because not everybody read Wars of the Republic era, but that is, to me, that's actually the peak moment in the Racelheg Dominion's entire story, from the moment of the clan invasion up to the, because like it's the only clan to functionally start losing power, and not because of like, you know, a violent overthrow or anything, but just because people were fed up with their bullshit. It's like, oh wow. And so you have a regular politician overthrow the Khan of Clan Ghostbear. It's like, oh my god. So
well, and it's like, is it an overthrow, or is she really going like, this is the future, this is how? Because I think there's a lot of people who, especially when you've got people that are 2 or 3 generations removed of Khan Kabrinsky, who oversaw that handover of power and that split of power to the civilians between the civilians and the Ghost Bears. There are clanners who are like, this is what we're supposed to do, right? We were supposed to protect the people of the Inner Sphere. We were supposed to protect humanity. And there's a lot of clans. And Ghost Bear picked this place to do this. And this is the right thing. And there's a lot of clanners that are believing that she was right.
But the thing is this happens in the middle of a war at a very inconvenient time in that war as well. Yeah. It's not like this happened, it's not like this happened after the Nova Cats were defeated. It happened in the middle of the war.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I mean, like, nothing's ever convenient, right? Like they say what do they say about planting trees, right? Like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's like, yeah, we're just going to keep on doing this. Oh, no, you won't. What do you mean?
But so, I mean, like that caused friction, obviously, how it went down, who it went down with, and things never really settled. I think that people have an idea in their head that, like, as soon as Khan Kabrinsky did that, and Racelheg became the Dominion in like 3071.
Well, no, so there's two wars. The first one is what led to the Ghost Bear Dominion. It's the second Racelheg Dominion war that leads to the Racelheg Dominion, because when it was just the Ghost Bear Dominion, that was because it's 3100 if I remember correctly. Where
that's when So, but whether it's the 3070 version of the government or the 3100 version of the government, it's constantly been in flux, and no one's ever agreed completely on what that balance of power should look like and what that final disposition should be.
I think Hjalmar Muraborg has made an agreement with himself on what it should look like, though.
I mean, that's what people in power tend to do.
I'm sorry. I've laughed too much because I'm having too much of a good time. This is a bad thing. I shouldn't be having fun on stream. Oh, we got Ray in the chat. There's a very good chance that Ray will be here on Friday, by the way, everybody.
I like Ray. You should ask Ray questions about the history of the Ghost Bears.
Should I ask Ray about history of the Ghost Bears? Is this the part where every guest that I have is just going to try to sabotage the guest that comes after? Because that would be fantastic. That would be great.
Now, if Ray's in the chat, we should just tell him, like, hey, what should we talk about? Like, because now I'm like,
I popped to warn the guys not to mention the Ghost Bear novellas yet. Oh. he has a distressed face emoji. Well, Ray, good job. You've mission accomplished. You have delivered your message.
I will say,
we've not mentioned.
I mentioned I was starting a Ghost Bear project on Twitter when I started, so people know that.
And we've not mentioned anything that actually happens in them.
No, we've been talking about stuff that happens 100 years before them.
But yeah, like you've got a good chance to write Emilio, who obviously is actually, I'd say a pretty liked character by everybody who read A Question of Survival.
I think so. I heard a couple people have talked to me about him where they felt like he was too weak of a character.
I don't really think so.
Where they felt like he didn't. I feel like it was maybe an accurate read where it was just like he wasn't willing to change, and I think that was sort of like the point of him, is that he was adherent, like he had changed to a point, but wasn't willing to go past a certain point, right? Where he was fixed in what he thought his deal was.
Well, yeah, he was, and you know, to the people who, of course, there are some people who made arguments that he shouldn't have tried to bid for the ship, but those arc ships are really valuable, and he thought he was going to win. You know, nobody makes the bet thinking that they're going to lose. That never happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there was definitely something in his brain that was telling him, like, this is the last of the Falcons. This is a desperate power move on their part, right? Like, they're not bringing their best and their brightest, and I happen to know how Falcons fight, right? He was not prepared for an iconoclastic Falcon who's like, oh, you think I'm going to bring, like, flighty mechs that are going to hop around and be all, terrorize you that way? Nope.
We brought Turkinas.
Yeah, no, we're going to sit here. We're going to cluster them real close so that we can accuse you of breaking Zilbrigan. And we're just going to punch you.
I love when they do decide to discard Zellbringen, how Emilio's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I love how he sees the tactic and he's just like, uh-huh.
Yeah. Like, there's this exasperation where it's just like, I see what you're doing.
So, I really enjoyed that book. So I thought it was a very good time. Yeah.
That's another one of those too where it's like, I didn't want to write that book with a bad guy at all.
There is no bad guy in the book.
No, there's not. I mean, like, I've had people make the case that GE is the bad guy because his whole goal is to steal kids.
Is the used car salesman a bad guy? Don't answer that question.
Well, it depends on what used car he's selling to whom. Like, if he's selling Stephen King's Christine to the single mom, yes, he's a bad guy.
He's just participating in the sale of a motor vehicle. That's all he's doing. That's all that's happening.
But no, I've heard people argue that, like, because his whole thing was like, I'm gonna go steal kids, that makes him the bad guy. But I think at the point where clan culture, it's not like he was going to steal them from the Lyrans, right? Like, it wasn't
God.
It wasn't like he showed up at like the Nagel Ring and was like, I'm gonna take all the cadets here.
Can you imagine if the story was him stealing Steiners? Oh my God!
Like, that would definitely make him the bad guy. That's something different. But like, but where it's clan culture, where these trials of possession are normal and accepted in their culture, and these kids are warriors and training to be warriors, and they're all of age or close to of age, and you know, I view it, I mean, in Battletech morality, this is by far the least egregious thing any character's ever done.
I will have you know that the characters in Battletech are very moral. They take moral, principle positions. They're very moral. I got that out with a straight face. I managed it.
And honestly, if you look at how he's treating the kids that he got, he's treating them with more decency and respect than they were getting treated in the Dominion.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
You know, if you look at Ghostbird, the shrapnel story I wrote about Alexis going through a trial of position, and without question, I think
Ignore the chat. Ignore the chat.
I'm trying to, but when Mechfrog does his GE,
what can I do to get you into this Turkina today?
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I think think G's definitely doing something right in that he's adapting as a clanner in ways that a lot of clanners wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
He's the right person for Clan Jade Falcon in the right moment. Whereas if Malvina would have survived, if the Falcons would have become the Ill Clan, he would have died in obscurity.
He probably would have died very quickly too.
Yeah. No, he would have gotten trialed or executed, or Nikita Malkus would have been sent to just execute him or whatever.
But with like a galaxy with her. It wouldn't just be her and like a few washouts. It would be like an actual army.
Yeah.
Could you please go kill this man? Oh, but of course, Malvina.
Yeah.
Malvina was a nice lady. She was
You keep telling me.
You know what? That was the funniest line, I think, at Adepticon. The first time I said that, everyone stared at me with abject horror.
Yeah.
I was like, what? She was a nice lady. She just wanted what was best for everybody.
And then Ciravella looked at you with a straight face and said, "This is a wonderful thing."
Oh, poor Mike. The next time I have like an interview with Mike, it's going to be terrible because I'm just going to be like, we have Michael Ciravella here, and that's a wonderful thing. That's
yeah.
But outside of poor humor, let me think here for a second. Is there anything you're really wanting to write in the future? Not like storylines or anything. Is there any particular characters or factions that you really want to get your hands on?
I'd really love to do more with Calandra Kell. I had a lot of fun working with her in the story in the latest Shrapnel. The story in the latest Shrapnel is sort of her. I think I got to write sort of her most recent appearance in the timeline, which is the story Zealot's Nest, and it's after she's taken Ark Royal, and just knowing the challenges she has ahead.
And of course, immediately afterwards, swearing fealty to the Archon, Trillion Steiner Davion.
Nuts.
Oh my God.
No, it's I'm really excited for Calandra's story. I'm really excited for her to step into the spotlight, and she's just a really fascinating character, and I don't think she's been in the spotlight as much as she should be, and certainly not as much as any of the other leaders in the hinterlands.
That's true. Actually, when we talked about Calandra earlier, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I haven't really seen a whole lot with Calandra compared to the others.
And I think there's an old Terran proverb about coming in like a wrecking ball. And I think that's where she might be coming.
I've heard the Kellhounds are good at fighting.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that they've been known for.
I've heard that they're good at fighting. I don't have any evidence to substantiate this, though.
No, Calandra is somebody I'd really like to do, and I really would. I would love to. I've said this every time. Like, I would love to get in and do some more. So some fiction in the Jihad era. I would love to do some Blakist stuff.
You said the bad word.
I did. I forgot.
I will leave this one up.
I would love to do some Blakist stuff during the kerfuffle.
You're using the frog word now. That's excellent.
Yeah.
I remember the first time Anthony said it, and everybody in the chat gave him such a hard time.
Well, it's weird. It's hard to remember. Like,
I just avoid it for the algorithm because.
No, I know. I totally understand, and like, there's definitely certain things that I do because I do Star Wars podcasting, and there's stuff like I avoid for similar things, and I remember it because I do that every week in, week out. Um, and working in Battletech every day, that's not a word we avoid when we're working on it.
Nor should you, because it's the actual
Yeah.
name for the era. Like,
Yeah.
I would say it if I thought that, like, it would not reduce circulation.
Yeah.
I would absolutely say it.
But no, during like the Blakists are really a faction that I think they've been underwritten. Not underwritten as far as like, oh, they're thin and nobody's really done anything cool with them. It's just like they just don't have enough fiction.
Well, I mean, it's a great shame too, because they are the protagonists of BattleTech.
Sure. But no, I would really actually like. I'm really fascinated by the rank and file, the people who buy it, and I guess that's part of one of the things that interests me that we were talking about earlier, right? Like we were talking about let's slip the dogs of war. Who are the people that are in the system that believe in the system? Are they terrible people, or how did they buy into that system and why?
I think there's always a combination. Like,
Yeah.
just if you look at any, like, really authoritarian or horrible regime in history, there's some people who are in it because they believe in it. There's some people who are in it for themselves, and there's other people who are in it because they're just vicious. And, like, you get this it's never just one group of like, oh, everybody was really secretly nice. Or also, it's also, not true that everybody's like a raving monster. Like, there's a mixture of people with different ideas and different visions of what they think they're following.
Yeah, and there's something really interesting to me, especially when Word of Blake is sort of really couched in a religion, right? Where there's people who there's definitely there was a lot of stuff in the source material that really fascinated me, where Word of Blake would perpetrate crimes on a planet full of people and then blame the people they were fighting for perpetrating those crimes, and then the run-of-the-mill civilian Blakists on the planet would buy the story because of that 1984, like, well, of course they did it, they're the bad guys, we wouldn't do something like that, you know what I mean? Like, and to try to understand that and see some of that in the fiction and why people would fight in that way, like, I'm really fascinated by that.
The only thing I disagree with there is that those other powers are actually the ones who committed those crimes.
I know. See, you'd be a really fascinating case study in this.
Oh my God. I don't know if you guys all know this, but have you heard of Jerome Blake? Have you heard of the great teachings that he is bringing all of us? And to get, Tello says, first of all, how dare you? Second of all, how dare you?
Why is everyone booing me? I'm right.
There's a lot of Blakists in the chat. So I'll let you know there's a lot of Blakists in the chat.
And that's fine. I mean, like, as a serious answer, that's my answer. That's a faction I'd really like to get my hands on.
They're so much fun. Like they have too little fiction, but, like, in terms of, like, proper narrative fiction, but they're just incredible. they're one of the best parts of BattleTech.
Yeah, no, I'd really love to do stuff with them. And I really love that moment where they think they're really going to get that next Star League, and everything goes to hell.
They've got it. They just have to try a little harder.
I mean,
when has the Star League ever not worked out before?
Literally every other time.
This new one's going to last forever, though. That's what I hear.
100 years in a movie.
Oh boy. But yeah, so let me think here. Is there anything else we can talk about, or do you want to take questions from the audience?
I'll take questions from the audience.
So first of all, I'm going to be respectful to the people who dropped super chats. And I'm going to start with Telos, who says, straight to the bin, Seafox belongs there. I think we'll have very different answers in terms of that comment. I know what I believe, but thank you, Telos, for your great contribution. Then we've got from PS, when Void Swimmer comes out, will it finally address the core Dark Age Blackout IRL 20 years since HPGnet went dark? No mystery boxes?
I mean, like, literally, no matter what way I answer that, nobody's going to believe me anyway. So, we address the blackout, and you're just going to have to read the book.
That's the right answer. That's always the right answer. Then we've got from Screen Monkey. Hey Brian, like the books don't get to hate. Your gay stuff is as hardcore as a Mormon love scene. Full clothes on cuddle session watching Hallmark. I don't want to. I'll just respond. It's not a horrendous comment, so I did read it. There you go.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's been in some certain circles some pushback that there's a little bit too much queer content in some of my stories, but like I think that's right. Like I feel like compared to some of the other Battletech stuff, my stuff is pretty chaste. I don't write gratuitous sex scenes or anything like that.
You don't even describe people in the most gratuitous ways. Like,
no,
you know, I've been reading some of the older fiction for just an upcoming project, and like there's no sex going on, but oh my, it feels like it when you're reading how people are described in the room. It's not.
Yeah. No, that's definitely something that I'm conscious of, to try to not to overly sexualize any character.
Yeah, like I don't have a preference either way, but like I have seen some of those complaints, and I just kind of go like, "What book did you read?"
Yeah, no, I think that there are some people who've politicized the existence of queer people, so them just existing is too sexually explicit for them, and I think that's just a matter of their imaginations running too far away with them.
At the end of the day, there have been gay people in BattleTech for a very long time. The first gay character, there was one mentioned in a source book in the 90s, but the first major gay character I can think of is Toranaga, who was introduced in the early 2000s, and he's a great character. So. Yeah.
And I mean, really, like I've had some characters that are like, I mean, really, it's the Fox Patrol where like Katie's ace, like Katie's asexual, like Katie cares more about mechs than human sexuality. Period.
She loves her battle mechs.
Yeah, and like Arky and Evan are there, and they're a very committed, like married couple. And I think like they've kissed on screen. You know what I mean? Like they kissed at their wedding in a church.
There's really nothing particularly gratuitous in your books, but
yeah, no, and I guess Alexis and Thomason and Sophie cuddled once in their Sibco.
Nothing bad has ever happened in a Sibco.
And I mean, like anybody who's like 17-year-olds don't engage in cuddling or anything worse than that has never seen a movie starring 17-year-olds in the 80s, and has B, never been a 17-year-old who went to public high school.
So then we've got from Beskar66, who says, Red, I've clipped that statement to show Randall when meeting him tomorrow over the weekend at PAX Australia. Plus, I will also inform him of... I'm not going to spoil that you have gifts for people, but that's horrible. Why would you encourage Randall to strangle me the next time he sees me? That's awful. He's a slightly taller person than me, and he has thicker arms, so he could definitely strangle me.
I don't get the impression Randall would hurt a fly.
If I run down the sea foxes long enough, we'll test that theory.
That's the impression I get out of everybody I've worked with at Catalyst is like the nicest person. Like no one, like none of them would hurt a fly.
I know.
So when I see, it's so funny when I see people like, oh, they'd wreck me, or Randall would put me in a headlock and choke me. I'm just like, I've never seen any evidence of violence in any of these people.
You see a news headline after like the next PAX West, you're like, oh my god, Randall put Big Red in the hospital.
Okay.
Joe, all joking aside. And then Tello says, of course, his first of all, how dare you? Second of all, how dare you? With those out of the way, we can take just general questions. Or he could beat you to death with his beard. That's the real fear, especially when it's purple, because everyone knows that Purple Bird is strong. If we say it enough, it will eventually be true. So, let's see here. Ray Arasta is withholding the answer to the blackout until after the Ill Clan era ends. He will leave it on a napkin at PAX. Oh, that's sinister. Brian, Randall told me if someone would like to write about the Blakist era... So, Randall told me if someone would like to write about Blakists coming back in the Ill Clan, he could. I even give him some plot points on paper.
I've got ideas for how some Blakists could survive, and I mean part of it is rooted in that like average people. I mean, like religions don't just like go away because the leaders do. You can be a Blakist and not be one of the like. There's ways to get Blakists, but trust me, the last thing I need is help with. I've got 1,000 ideas to get Blakists in the Ill Clan era. The issue is that every time somebody comes and says, "Hey, Brian, do you want to do more of this?" My answer is yes. And then Ray and John go, "Brian, calm down. How much are you already writing?" And then I still get people coming to me and saying, like, "When are you going to write more Archer Pride from Honor's Gauntlet?" And I'm like, "Well, as soon as they let me." And then they go, "When are we getting more G?" And I'm like, "Well, as soon as they let me." And then now I'm getting like, "When are we getting more Fox Patrol and Tomcats?" And when Voidbreaker comes out, I think we're gonna get like, when are we gonna get more of the character that leads that off? And when are we gonna get more?
All half dozen of the Sea Fox fans will get together and they will sign a petition. They're gonna kill me one of these days. That's not true. There's a fair number of Sea Fox fans. I'm just being mean.
Well, and I honestly think Voidbreaker is going to be a really good entry novel for folks that are new to BattleTech, because it's a little bit different of a BattleTech book. It still has the big stompy robot action and everything, but it is framed a little bit more like an espionage book, right? Like it's a military sci-fi espionage book with the big stompy robots in the BattleTech milieu. I don't want anybody to think like, oh, it's not a BattleTech book, it's something else. But it's a blend of something that I think is really popular among general audiences as well. And I think my hope with all the books is that there's a potential to bring in people into the setting because it's a really cool setting. And I think Voidbreaker has a lot of that potential.
Yeah, like I am sure that there will be many a people who read Voidbreaker and take something very positive from it.
I would say so. Angry Caveman says it's a Tom Clancy style book. I would say more Ian Fleming.
Oh,
I went back to Ian Fleming, and it's. I don't think people realize how different the James Bond books are than the movies, but it's sort of like a hybrid of the two. Because I really like the James Bond books and the movies, and it was me trying to figure out what makes those books so readable, and what makes the movies so watchable. And what is it about those two that has been so enduring? And what could I bring to BattleTech in a mystery in that way that fit with what was going on with Tucker and the HPGs? So, yeah.
Tello says, again, sorry, if we are driving you nuts if we do. Red gets this every day, and we appreciate you coming on.
No, you're not driving me nuts. Hell, I watch streams now and again, and I see what goes on here. If I were afraid of it or if it was going to drive me nuts, I wouldn't agree to come on. In fact, yeah, no, I would. I'm good.
That'd be hilarious. Hey, Brian, you want to come on stream? Don't DM me. Oh.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. And so I'm like, hey guys, Brian agreed not to come on stream this week.
Well, in some circles, that might be a good thing.
So let me see here. Question: what made you want to tackle Tucker Harwell and the Sea Foxes? Assigned or original idea?
This was something that grew out of this was something that grew out of the summit, the creative summit that we did. And I don't remember exactly how Ray and I ended up over by the map talking, but Ray started explaining, there was another book that Ray had asked me to write that seems like it's 3 or 4 years away now, that I won't get into details about. And we started talking about what step would need to be taken to get there. And then we talked about this book sort of in very loose terms. And as we were standing at the map in the summit room, because we had the maps of the universe out, and we were sort of plotting out the future of the universe, we talked about how this is a story that sort of needed to be told. And I said, what would be really cool is if we did it this way. And I kind of pitched the James Bond idea. And he and I figured out, well, if we did it here and we did it there, and we sort of just spitballed the idea and we got really excited about it. And that was that. I wrote a pitch for it based on what we'd spitballed there at the summit. And it was going to be originally just a short novel. It was supposed to be 60,000 words, and there were some complications with the story because of some other stuff that hopefully comes to light later. But it turned into like an 85,000 word novel because of that. But no, like it was really just out of that creative summit and sitting down and Ray kind of fueling that. Ray's just a really great collaborator. Ray's a really creative dude, and I know people look at him as like the line developer, but Ray doesn't get enough credit for his storytelling acumen. And
Ray is an incredible person to talk to about potential things you could or couldn't do. Because I talked to him for a couple days, obviously, at Adepticon, and I was like blown away. But it also
Oh, go ahead.
It was also the funniest thing, though, as a result of that at the con, though, because I picked up a signed copy of Hunting Season. When I did, I was standing in line and I held it up and I looked at him. I said, "But Ray, this is a story of Nicole who cried a river and drowned the free worlds," and he just had the saddest look in the world on his face. He's just like, "It's not what it's intended."
But Ray has an incredible instinct for Battletech. He's got an incredible instinct for like story and matching people to story. And I think, honestly, like if I've had any success in Battletech, it was because Ray was able to point to me and say, like, I think you're the right person to tell this story with a question of survival. Even though, like, on paper, like, I don't know why he came to that conclusion. But sitting there spitballing ideas with him for it, it was a lot of fun. And I really love working with Ray and bouncing ideas with him. And that's really where Voidbreaker came from. And it was getting excited. It was getting excited about the story with Ray. And just writing the pitch and then getting it approved, and I was off at the races. It was so fun to write. I've been having so much fun writing Battletech, and I hope that comes across. Not that you'll ever read it, Red.
Yeah, I've never read any of your work. I
read Voidbreaker.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to read Voidbreaker because it's a Sea Fox book about Tucker Harwell. I mean, I thought we talked about this before.
No, we did. I was just.
It's just being passive aggressive.
Yeah. I
can't help it. It's just the way I am. So, was so funny. It's like, why do you hate? I remember the first time you asked me why I hate Tucker Carwell, and it was sincere. I'm like, I'm a Comstar fan. It's like, why would I like this person? He killed the thing I love. It's like all I want to see happen to him is die. So, couple more questions here, which is, how? Oh, sorry, that's something that's not really. I know you won't have the answer to. Does Brian do any research for his BattleTech novels?
Yeah, so much. You can't really see it. I can pull some of it around, but I've got Dominions Divided here. I've got Force Manual Kurita here. I've got printouts of the Second Combine Dominion War here. I've got my annotations, if you can see them, in Hour of the Wolf. I've got a complete collection of all the print novels. So like whenever I'm working on something, I've got stuff all around. I've got a notebook with all of my story notes. I've got my outlines. I've got Sarna open constantly. I'm constantly asking the fact check team questions. I've got record sheets everywhere. Yes, I'm doing tons of research, and I'm usually reading at least a Battletech book or two that has some relevance to what I'm working on at the time.
So here's two questions for you, one from the audience and one from me based off of that answer. The first one from the audience, what is your favorite mech?
It depends on weight class, I guess, and what I'm working on. For some reason, I'm just obsessed with the Kodiak.
Oh, it's a cool mech.
I love the Kodiak, and I love how like absurdly like deadly it is, but it looks cool and the claws are rad. That's why I had Katie face one in Fox Patrol. I was like, I'm never going to get to ride a Kodiak, so I'm going to put it here.
Well, and now you can definitely ride a Kodiak.
Yeah, no, I've written lots of Kodiaks. I also really love that Kit Fox. I love Katie's Kit Fox, even though it's so hard story-wise to like keep her alive in it.
Oh yeah, because it's a death trap. It's 100% a death trap.
I love the Ion Sparrow.
That's so dangerous. That thing is just a nightmare.
I love the sort of like the Jade Falcon totem mechs, like the Gyr Falcon and the Shrike.
Oh, all of the totem mechs from the Falcons are so cool. I love them. Yeah. I love them to death.
I'm really enjoying the Wolfhound. I got to play a Wolfhound recently, and in Masters and Minions, I asked for an Iron Sparrow, and they're like, we can't get a model for it. What else would you want? And I was like, a Wolfhound. So I ended up getting the Wolfhound, but they still gave me the Ion Sparrow sheet. So I was proxying an Ion Sparrow with a Wolfhound, and I ended up playing a Wolfhound in a game later. And I just love those Wolfhounds. And I actually, in a grinder, I tried so hard to die in my Wolfhound, and I just couldn't do it.
Well, the Wolfhound is one of the best light mechs to come out of the Succession Wars. It's just a nightmare to deal with, even for most mediums.
Yeah, I spent that whole grinder not getting out of that Wolfhound.
So, the other question I have is which is your favorite classic novel?
Does Dark Age count as a classic novel?
At this point it would, just because Dark Age is also now very old. So people always act like Dark Age happened recently. I'm like, bro, it's been 23, 24 years.
I really love Ghost War. Ghost War has Mike, I think, at the top of, like, it's where he learned. Right, Mike is finally at the top of his writing game with Ghost War. The story is a classic take on a classic novel. It's got that noir vibe. And it reset. I know the Dark Age has a lot of baggage for people, right?
I mean, but it's definitely not the best BattleTech storytelling.
But if you're resetting everything and you're setting the universe up into the Dark Age and you're handing someone one book and you're saying, this is the introduction to how the
the
universe
opening
is
act.
now.
Yeah, the
Ghost
big,
War is terrific.
yeah, it was an interesting time. It was an interesting, it's been too long since I've read Ghost War. It's been way too long. I remember very little from it, but I've actually been rereading the Warrior trilogy. I actually got started with On Guard this week because it's going to be part of a big Calhounds video I'm going to be doing. And I was so proud of myself because I thought I'd forgotten most of it, but the scene where Justin Allard loses his arm, I remembered, as I was reading through it, I'm like, I remember all this, and I felt so proud of myself. And then today, I read chapters 3 and 4, like the introduction of like Daniel Hart and Patrick Kell. I'm like, I remember none of this.
No, I read that trilogy last year for some stuff, for some work stuff, and there were parts of it that were like, come on, Mike, you can do better. And there were other parts of it where I was like, Mike, how are you doing this good this early in your career? This is disgusting. Right? Like there's the moment where Patrick sacrifices himself. That whole sequence is incredible. And then in the third book, when you realize where the stories are heading, and you finally get that feeling where it's that unstoppable force, or that unstoppable force meeting that immovable object, and you're like, oh, this is where it's going. Like, Mike did really good work for being that early in his career.
Yeah, it was like even reading through some of the earlier chapters, I was just when I got to Grade Noden's chapter, I was just like extremely because it's, again, for me, it's probably been 23 years since 24 years since I read that book, and like I read through it, and like the whole part with Grey Noden, I'm like, this is brilliant. This is way better than I remember, because I read that when I was like 12 or 13 years old, right? I was not old enough to really appreciate it to the full extent. So like I'm like, oh yeah, I remember Grey Noden. He cuts all these deals, blah blah blah. But like as I'm reading through it, for the first time in all these decades, I'm like, oh man, this is amazing. This is fantastic. So yeah, no, it's been a trip. I think I'm on like chapter 10, no, chapter 9 right now is where I'm at. I'm trying to finish burning through it by tomorrow, so I can just say that at the very least that I have finally reread these books, and I'm able to use the excuse because I normally only read for projects now. Not because I read all the time is the thing. It's not because I don't read ever. It's just like I'm constantly reading, and so when I get spare time, it's really hard for me to justify. It's like, I'm going to sit down and read a novel. I'm like, I read like 3 novels.
My wife pulled a dirty trick on me the other day. Well, a couple weeks ago. Like I'm in the point where it's like I'm reading for work all the time. So it's either Battletech or a book to review. So it's usually Star Wars or something else. So like my to-do list, my to-read pile's like, I read the new Batman book that comes out next week. I've got the new Star Wars book that comes out next week. I've got a Battletech book. I mean, you see my desk full of Battletech books. And she checked out a book at the library for me that she knew I wanted to read but wouldn't make time for it. And she was smart because she got it at the library knowing that I would have to race to finish it before it was due. Because if she would have bought it,
it would just go into the pile.
Like, yeah, it'd go into the pile. So, and I read it before it was terrific too, but I wouldn't have. It felt like a dirty trick.
Excellent. Let's see. Do we have... My goal is to read the novels in order. That's a cool thing to do, Aster. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that sounds cool. I guess that if you mean in order of release or chronologically in order? Because if it's chronologically in order, I think the clan origins would probably be chronologically the first novels. The trilogy done by Randall, I believe. But let's see here. So, is there any pull to write a cynic Marina story? Oh, and then Ray answered that kind of.
I was gonna say, like, I don't have any plans with her, but I love her as a character, and I'm so glad I was able to flesh her out in the question books and in Lone Wolf and Fox. She was so satisfying to like write. She's such an interesting character. And even if I have anything to do with it or not, I'm excited to see what her next steps are.
He was defending himself. Red has no heart. What do you mean? What do you mean Red has no heart? I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just trying to have a fun interview. What did I do? I've been very unfair to my guest, apparently. I mean, that's probably true, but that's beside the point. I think that's pretty well it, though. Oh, you wish ill on Tucker Harwell? Yes. Yes, I do. I don't think that's a controversial... that's not a controversial take as far as this channel is concerned. That's like being like, Red, you wish ill on the wolves and sea foxes. It's like, oh, is it a day ending in Y? Poor Brian. I don't think that he can answer that question, Screen Monkey.
Which one?
Which House Lord is in line to have an heir first? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like,
I mean, like, even if I knew, I wouldn't be able to say, and I have no idea. Yeah. I thought you were asking about the question about, like, how often do I play Battletech, and I'm like, oh, I can answer that one.
No. Like, the one that caught my eye was just like, which one's going to have an heir first? I'm like, I don't think he can answer that, even if he knew.
Yeah. No, somebody needs to start getting heirs. Otherwise, we're not going to have another generation. That's why everything's in 3152 is just nobody's having kids. We can't have another huge time skip if nobody's having kids.
I'm not going to say the terrible joke I'm going to say. I'm not going to do it. So Ray knows the answer to that question. So I hope you realize, Ray, if the weather permits and you are able to make it on Friday and anyone remembers that, you will be pestered to death in the chat. I hope
now that you pointed it out, everyone's going to remember.
Yeah, but that's half the fun. Alaric already has heirs. That's correct. You're right, guys. All of the future House Lords will just be Alaric's progeny. We got it. There's the best take. We're good. But yeah, I think that's basically it. I think that we've kind of run through the totality of the questions we can today.
Unless Ray wants to yell at me for something I wasn't supposed to say. Which he can. That is his right.
Well, I mean, he did actually kind of like foreshadow disappointment or yelling earlier. It's really funny.
Yeah. I mean, we can ask Star Wars questions. I think it would bore Red to tears. But no,
I mean, I don't know why the chat would wish to inflict harm on me.
About how much I play, though, I don't play enough. I play with my kid, the one that came in. He and I play as often as I can convince him. He likes playing, but like his thing is like he just wants to play as the Fox Patrol, and it's gotten hard for me to like make it interesting for me to not just murder Katie every time.
But I mean, is there such like I like Katie Ferraro well enough, but the fact she's in that Kit Fox, I'm just like when I see a Kit Fox, I'm just like, just light it up, just light the Kit Fox up.
So I mean, here's an interesting story. Like the reason, so I tried to put Katie initially in an Arctic Fox, and Fact Check was like, nope, got to be a Kit Fox, and honestly, like Secret Fox was like my second Battletech story. I was writing the Fox Patrol stories concurrently with Honor's Gauntlet. So I was still getting very much my legs under me as far as Battletech went. And I didn't really know better, and I hadn't played with a Kit Fox before. And it was as soon as I started playing with my kid, and they just wanted to play with a Kit Fox, I was like, I didn't realize how much of a mistake I've made. Like, this is...
it was hit by a large laser. What happens? It explodes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is a problem. So, and then, I mean, like, all of a sudden I'm like, well, she's just really that good of a pilot then if she's lasted this long. And then I was like, well, wait, is she that good of a pilot, or do they just take really, really easy jobs? And that's probably why they're struggling financially all the time.
It's like, this job pays 300,000 kroner, and you're like, that's the equivalent of a can of Pepsi. They're like, yes!
She never does the conversion out of pesos.
You know, I forget which channel member sent the message, but I'll never forget how funny it is for someone, I was like a week ago, said the Steiner economy is doing great. That's why we've released the 300 million kroner bill.
Yeah. But no, hopefully the Fox Patrol is on a different trajectory after Katie learns some really hard lessons.
Like, don't fight the Tumen of Clan Hell's horses.
Yeah, no, that's really I think that'll be a wake-up call for her.
But yeah, no, like Kit Foxes are they're not very strong.
No.
I mean, they do a lot of damage, but it's actually it's actually bad that they do a lot of damage, because that means that people immediately are like, I should kill that.
Yeah, no, that was the first time I played a Kit Fox. Actually, was at Masters and Minions, at Gen Con, and it was, you know, the person on the other side of the table they were familiar with Fox Patrol, they were a fan, and they were just like, "You've got Katie Ferrara's Kit Fox. I'm gonna go murder her because I want to keep her mech." So that didn't take long.
And then, can you imagine? Somebody kills Katie Ferraro. I have now claimed the Kit Fox of the legendary Katie Ferraro.
Yeah.
It will go in my museum. Like,
yeah.
There's one person in the background. It's like, who the hell is Katie Ferraro?
Yeah. No. So yeah. No. It's definitely one of those things where it's like, yeah, the Kit Fox has this thing where it's got to move fast so it can get the bonuses to make it harder to hit, but it's got to snipe and it's got to stay far away. So you're just running circles at the back of the map, trying to make sure that you're keeping your movement up and not getting close enough for anybody to hit it too hard. Otherwise, somebody's just kicking feet off of it. But I used Katie in the Fox Patrol. I brought those mechs out when Without Question came out. I did a huge tour of the game stores in my local area, and we played a whole bunch of games, and I was teaching people the game, and it was a lot of fun, and we got tons of people into it. And it was really great to see the local community in my area sort of really start to flourish with Battletech. And I used my Fox Patrol mechs because I've got a whole Lance. I've got the whole crew painted up, minus that Ion Sparrow, which, if Ray's still on and listening, I really need an Ion Sparrow.
Ray, why are you depriving your staff of Ion Sparrows? Why is this happening? What's going on over there, Ray?
Yeah, I don't know. But so I used the Fox Patrol, and I had 2 Kit Foxes, so it was like when I was showing people, it was a really fast, quick game to show people how to play if I had a Kit Fox on either side, and could show them how to shoot and do things. And there was one game I was showing someone, and it ended up with us just kicking each other's legs off, and it was a lot of fun. That Kit Fox does not do a whole lot of damage for kicking.
No, just be 1 second, everybody. I quickly have to transition the camera for but one moment, and so you will see a top-down picture of a big model, but this is only going to be for a second. I just have to move a different window out of the screen, so just give me a moment.
And what a model.
All right. It's a beautiful model. It's wonderful. Oh,
Yeah, I
there
think
we
that
go.
mech is coming out in a Jade Falcon pack, but it's not. I don't have it soon. I don't have it now, and that's what I'm concerned about.
But no, I think the Ion Sparrow's like it's coming out in plastic, isn't it? It's coming
Yeah,
in
it is.
the
It
Alina
is.
Mercantile pack or the Jade Falcon pack.
It's in one of those packs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the I'm looking forward to most of the box sets coming out. I think that the mechs in them largely seem like they're going to be very, very solid, especially for like I've wanted the later era mechs for a while. Like, admittedly, there's no Purple Bird pack because there's a deep seated hatred of the Free Worlds League, obviously embedded.
It's not a hatred; they just haven't bribed the right people yet.
That's true.
I mean, if you want to see them, you just got to grease the right you got to grease the right palms, Red.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. We live in the Free Worlds League IRL. Just people don't speak Czech and Slovak as much, or Romanian.
I mean, I can't imagine if someone showed up to Catalyst and said, "I'll pay for X amount of the production run to start this in order to get Free Worlds League mechs." I can't imagine them saying no.
Imagine they're like, "Your money's no good here, sir."
Yeah.
We don't take those eagles here, actually. This here's a Kroner company.
Yeah. Just gotta grease those palms.
That's awesome. Free Worlds League miniature force manual are coming. Just everything takes a long, long time. Oh, I know. I'm going to be 55 years old, Raymond. Ray, I'm going to be 55 years old. And then you guys will be like, guess what, guys? 5 years from now, Free Worlds League pack is coming. I'll have to wait 22 years. 22 years of suffering for Purple Bird. I'm only fucking you. So, he puts up the death sign. Let me think here. Is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else. I think that... I mean, thankfully, we didn't get any Star Wars questions, because... My God. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it for an interview. I don't think we need to go any further. Oh, Toxic Toast. What storylines are you most excited to see develop in the Ilklan era?
I can't say.
Excellent.
I really can't.
I know. I believe that.
Yeah, no, I can't say. Because, like, there's stuff coming down the pipe, stuff I'm involved in, stuff I'm not involved in. There's stuff happening in Tom Levine's book that I'm so excited for. There's stuff happening in every part of the inner sphere I'm really excited to see play out. And then where we get to in future phases, I'm just excited. Like, Ray and Aaron and the development team have really... in concert, like, really brought the writers in and really allowed a really cohesive team spirit creatively to come up with something that I think it's going to be really special. And I think the Ilklan era is going to go down. I don't know. Like, I don't want to oversell it. I'm just really excited about the storytelling.
I see a lot of very good potential in the Ilklan era. I talk about it, sometimes on stream. Like, I think that there's potential for tons of interesting stories in House Steiner, in House Marik, in the Federated Sons. I'm hopeful that the Dominion books will be good. Just because I get along with the writer does not mean I guarantee that I'll like them, but I do hope that those will be good. And like, after that, like, there's a lot of potential for great stories, and you already get kind of some of them in the hinterlands and in these other spaces. The real thing that's going to determine if how the Ilklan era goes, regardless of how much I like the periphery around the center, is going to be like what happens. And I hate to say this because I at this point I hate Terra, but there's going to have to be something has to salvageably come out of the middle of the plot, and it's just kind of going to be, what does that look like? Like that's what's going to determine if it's a success or not, because like you can take a look at some of the previous eras that are not quite as loved, and often people will point to what they perceive as the central story as being whether they say yay or nay on if it was good or bad or anything, regardless of like, oh, but you had all these cool stories all over the place, but they're like, yeah, but the Fedcom Civil War, or yeah, but the Dark Age, the Republic of the Sphere, some things just didn't land, right? So
I think Ray and John and Aaron and the team put together the right group of heads to really, with the roadmap that they had sketched out, to put together the right storytellers to help figure out what the most interesting direction, the most exciting direction, and just the most satisfying direction. Even if people don't realize that, it's interesting going on to Discords or Reddit or Twitter or wherever, the forums or wherever fans are talking, and to see how much people get right, how much people get wrong, and how much people are going to be really surprised, and I think ultimately satisfied. And even if they don't like all the twists and turns, I think overall, I think Ray and the team is putting together a really satisfying feast. And it's not even just a feast, it's a buffet. Well, and like, if you don't, if there's a part of the meal that you're not into, just, don't put your finger in the mashed potatoes, just move on to the next course.
Well, absolutely, but I'm just saying that regardless of that, the central plot, like, and it's not even whether I like it or not, like, just to be very clear, to like, I'm one, fat fool on the internet. It, like, it's going to be kind of like what the general community consensus is on if something worked or not worked, right? Like, I could be, upsetty spaghettis until the cows come home. But if 95% of the Battletech community is like, Big Red's an idiot and this was a great book, then it's like, I'm not going to agree with the general community potentially, but this is their story and this is what they believe. Now, I think that there is, of course, a lot of potential, but I have to see what happens. I have to see it unfold to see if, is it, because, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? We're going to find out. We're going to find out.
So what's the critical mass on consensus on Sea Foxes and Tucker Harwell for the community to go like, no, Red, maybe you should check this one out?
Well, see, even if they tell me to check it out, I'm still not going to.
Okay.
I don't read things based off of what the community thinks. I will say that I used to like Sea Fox in what feels like a time long ago. If Sea Fox, changes significantly from what it currently is to something else that is not quite as suffocating to the setting, I am sure that I will have a much more accepting attitude of just reading a Sea Fox book, because I don't tend to read the things I don't tend to read. I don't tend to read them not because like an individual story is good or bad or whatever, but it's just like, I can't read any more Sea Fox material. They're insufferable, like, and in the worst possible way. Like, when like I couldn't get through Riptides, and I like Randall's writing, so it has nothing to do with that. Like, about 2 pages in, I just literally sat there and I went, "This sucks," and I closed it. And it's very like, when I reread Hunting Season, it was hard for me to even like want to read the Sea Fox portion of it, to the point where like I forgot that they dodged a bunch of nuclear weapons in the most asinine way, and then I was reminded later and I was depressed, because that's even more Sea Fox badness, where it's just like, everyone's afraid of nukes and Battletech, but not Sea Fox. And so it's just one of those things where I just like, it's the same reason I don't read the Wolves. Like, if I read a Wolf book, the worst part of the book is for me, and this is just for me personally, is the part where I have to read the Wolves. You know, it's just like, oh man, these people are insufferable, and I don't personally like any of them, and I don't want to read about any of them.
I figured out how to do it. I'll have Mike bribe you with a Coke. That's...
I'll have you know, treachery is much cheaper than than reading a Sea Fox book. Oh, terrible. Oh yeah, I'll shoot somebody. I'll shoot somebody in the back for $5. Will you read the Sea Fox book? Where you better get a dump truck. Of what? A dump truck full of money.
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do.
But yeah, like, you know, it's not even like about an individual story. It's just like they just become radioactive at a certain point. Like, you know, basically. I felt bad because like there's another Sea Fox book that came out, and like it's immediately like pass. It's like I had several people. Are you gonna read this? You know, you got it in your Kickstarter. I'm like, I didn't even download it. But yeah, there we go. Now that we've explored my deep disdain for Clan Sea Fox and why I don't read things. But just to be fair, just as a final aside, one of the reasons why I don't read them is I try to be excited about Battletech. And the last thing is like if you end up having to read stuff that you just can't get through, it's just like I just can't. And you know, because the last time I did that, and you know, I feel so bad because I think Craig's fantastic and I like most of Craig's stuff. But the last time I did that was I promised everybody I would read Elements of Treason Honor. And about 50 pages in, I sent like this sad and like desperate message to my community. Like, I know I promised you guys this, but I don't know if I can really finish like, you know, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, this isn't really clicking with me. Are you guys sure you want me to do this review? And like 150 people were like, you promised. And I was like, oh, okay. I read the book and I was so depressed. It's just like, I didn't produce any meaningful content for like a month because I was just down to like, this is the worst. So that's why I have the policy of avoiding things that like, if it doesn't click, I'm just like, I gotta do other stuff.
No, I don't. I don't hope that you. I hope that you don't think I'm like, either seriously put out about you not reading it or actually judging you for it.
Friendship over. Friendship over.
At this point, it's a joke.
I know. But I just have to explain to the audience too, like, you know, why I don't read certain material, right? Like it's not related to like, even if the individual book is good or bad or whatnot. It's just I have to read a ton of other stuff, and I have to enjoy a lot of it, or I'll go crazy. Crazier. I pause for everything. I'm like, wait, I'm missing something.
Yeah.
I'll be sure to send you something torturous to read at some point. Maybe we'll trade. I'll write something just torturous, send it over to you. I'll make sure it's like 30 or 40,000 words. I'm like, if you can give me a full review on this, I will read this book. You're like,
hungry like the wolf too.
This is the story of Alaric's personal love interest. Everyone's like, who is it? Alaric too. He clones himself just so he can have somebody worthy of his love.
The only person he could love truly was himself.
Oh boy.
Can you just see him staring longingly at that iron womb, waiting?
Soon. Everyone's like, this is kind of weird, isn't it? He just repeats again, soon. Chance Vickers has started smoking. She's in the background, like, just shaking her head, like, wow, this is where the might of the Ill Clan has arrived. Flicks the cigarette away.
I'm glad we spent all that money researching growth acceleration instead of our economy.
she's trying to be loud, he's just ignoring her, and he's just like, soon. It's a Larik 2, not a Larik 2C, because no clan DNA is involved. Oh, no! Ray, you're a savage.
I don't know what we've done. What have we done?
Nothing good has come of this interview. Only terrible things have evolved from this.
Oh man.
But we're at the 2-hour mark, and I think I've absorbed enough of your time, and
we've done enough damage.
We've done enough damage. The PR cleanup site is going to be months in the work. But thank you very much for being on here with me. Everybody, I do recommend checking out Let's Slip the Dogs of War. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a link to that. But I don't have a link to that will work for everyone. Google Let's Slip the Dogs of War Battletech, and you will find a book called Let's Slip the Dogs of War. It's worth your time. It's a fun read. It was like $4 Canadian for me to pick up, so it's definitely worth your time. So with that being said, I hope you're all excited for new Battletech content coming down the pipeline. Hopefully we'll have Ray on this Friday, and then the audience will simply torment him. I'm sorry, Ray. And then we're going to have Bungletech on Sunday. And at this point, I can also announce that Chris Lowry, the narrative director for Mechwarrior 5 Clans, is going to be here on Tuesday. So there we go, everybody. We'll catch you all then.
Thanks for having me.